Today, we are joined by Bevis Griffin. He is a local figure here in Austin, Texas. Wow. Where do we start with him? Back in the 70s, I guess it was, you could say he was sort of a pioneering, groundbreaking rock musician. Started off as a drummer, moved to the front of the stage as a front man. He's a black dude doing the whole androgynous thing, sort of the Little Richard meets Mick Jagger kind of vibe. A lot of Jimi Hendrix influence came into the picture at some point. And then he kind of made his way. He originally started in Los Angeles, came to Texas, spent some time in Austin, made his way to New York, where he became a founding member of the Black Rock Coalition with Vernon Reid from Living Colour. So a really fascinating guy who grew up at a time when there were a lot of barriers in the way of becoming a successful rock musician if you looked like Bevis Griffin. And that's just the reality of it, and he'll be the first to tell you. But his perseverance paid off. He never let it get him down. He stuck it out. And in his later years, including up to today, he's become sort of an advocate for upcoming young musicians and people that are trying to find their own journey through the world of music. You've known him for quite some time, Jason. So
yeah, my story with him starts. I got here in '80 or '81, and quickly ended up in Watchtower, which then as an early inception of Watchtower was invited by these dudes who were a little bit older to come play this gig that was kind of, I think it was like an afternoon gig at like a I can't remember the name of the little club, but it was like an arcade maybe, or just a little bar, and it was on the Drag down on Guadalupe on UT campus. And we were invited by these guys in Austin, right? We got invited by these guys called Bonsai Kick that had obviously seen us somewhere or heard the buzz or something, and we got just invited, phone rang kind of thing. And Johnny Medina was drumming, who's an old friend of mine. He was drumming for Bonsai Kick at that point, and he was running Sound at Liberty Lunch, and that was probably how the story I just told, the phone ringing was probably a call from Johnny Medina. Hey, come down and play with Bonsai Kick. And that's when I met Bevis Griffin for the first time. And it blew my mind because, as you described, that was his sort of like over the top version of, David Bowie. And he could have been in the New York Dolls as a black guy.
Yeah.
And it was this over the top kind of almost punk kind of thing. And the story today is really about the journey to that and what it took as a black rock and roll musician, and then the fire that he had, and how he moved about in between and always stood his ground. And I call him, at the end of our episode today, I called him an educator. And that's really what he is now. We asked him only just a handful of little questions, and he kind of just took it from his beginnings all the way to from southern Los Angeles to Austin to New York and back to Austin, and he rubbed elbows and met the people, in my opinion, the people that he needed to meet in every little jaunt he did, and they let him in. And I feel like the big break was not really there. And he confesses he was truly trying to be up there in the spotlight. He wanted his name in the lights, and I get that. And he works really hard to make people understand what those barriers might have been, and it's still talked about today. And I feel like it was an incredible story that he told us today, and he wasn't even done yet. So I hope that everybody gets it. and enjoys it, because I thoroughly had a great time. It is interesting though that we asked one question, then he just like goes, well, let me tell you what it's all about.
Yeah.
And then sort of goes crystal ball. And I hope you like that part. That part of it I really, really liked. And yeah, man, it was really cool.
Interesting guy, rubbed elbows with a lot of interesting people, and his perseverance is the thing that stood out to me. He's obviously very into music and his craft and his love for it all. And you got to love a guy that just won't stop. And even when there's obstacles in the way or whatever. What I liked is he was born in L.A., came to Texas, but landed first in Wichita Falls before he came to Austin. So he actually had sort of reverse culture shock, because he came from like this very progressive, city of Los Angeles. And then he ends up in Wichita Falls, Texas. If you know anything about Texas, it's not exactly the most cosmopolitan city in Texas. And then he makes his way to Austin, which again is very much more liberal. So he's kind of ping-ponging around between all these various locales, and in some places segregation was still very much in effect or had just ended. So yeah, a lot of interesting environments.
You got to think about that and put it in perspective as to what was happening to this young black guy coming to Texas to get out of Watts. He mentions that, and he'll tell the story. He's going to tell it better than either of us, about how Watts was, already open-minded and integrated and progressive, and there was no issue, and then the riots happened in Watts, and his family, some stuff. He'll tell you about it, and that's why he had a chance to come. His mom was coming to Texas to basically reset and get away from the destruction that had happened in Los Angeles after the riots. And he came with her and had a reset button and fell in with the right people. And again, I'm going to call him, he says that he was a unicorn. I fully agree with that, about just how different you would have to be, and open-minded and progressive you would have to be on his journey. An incredible journey, and I hope people enjoy this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Great story today. Bevis Griffin on the Talk Louder podcast.